Hello. I write about thinking, and I'm very intrigued by the process of how our environment makes us think and react. And I'm working on a book about this, and I'm very excited about that book. Very, I think, tuned in to my ideas and the feelings about it. And as I'm working on the book, I've shown it to some people, and they've said, you can't write this book because it's actually something that should be written by somebody in a university. And so I've said, well, these are my thoughts. What should I do? And they said, maybe affiliate with a university. And I'm a business person. I have my own business, and I do consulting. And so...
What do they mean you can't write it? Do they mean no one would accept it from you?
Yes, that I have to affiliate with some kind of university or be a...
Every book on this table has been on the New York Times bestseller list, and Esther has no college degree.
Yeah.
So we would leave them out of the equation if we were standing in your shoes.
I'm glad to hear you say that.
In other words, there are those who believe that you must find your credibility before people will want to read what you write.
That's exactly what they've told me.
And what we want you to understand is that when you tune in to who you really are, that's where your true credibility comes from.
And that's attractive.
And it's attractive to those who are a vibrational match to it. In other words, anyone who finds you not credible wouldn't understand what you've written anyway. That may be the problem there, too.
Okay. One final question in relationship to that. The reality that is you is very different than the reality of business or government or school. In other words, Abraham is a collection of individuals who function or are translated through...
We want to hear you out, and we will hear you out fully, but we want to lay a little basis here from the question that we began with earlier today, that if you're approaching your physical world in an action-oriented stance, then we'll give you that. But if we were standing in your physical shoes, we would begin using the power of our mind to find out how much of these universal forces you have access to. In other words, one person who is in alignment with who they are is more powerful than millions who are not. Your power of influence is huge, you see. What happens is, let's say you have an idea. And let's say that business as it stands thinks differently, or education as it stands thinks differently. Now you're talking about a consensus that's made up of a whole lot of people who feel a whole lot of different ways. But let's say that this particular group of people have browbeat themselves and one another until they've come to a general consensus of how things should be, or even how things are. And then you, radical you, come up with through living life and giving birth and tuning in, you come up with an idea that is different than what they think. And so different, in fact, that they wouldn't read you. They say to you, you don't know. But you do know. You know what you know. And you're tuned in, tapped in, turned on. And you're excited about what you know. And law of attraction is backing up what you know. So your reality is beginning to morph to what you know, just like their reality is morphing to what they know. And your reality is pleasing you, and their reality is and isn't, mostly isn't pleasing them. So you're tuned in, tapped in, turned on, and things begin to acquiesce around you. Your world begins to take the physical manifestation of the form that it was only in your mind. So everything's going along just like you all planned. You get what you think about whether you want it or not. You're getting what you think about because you want it. They're getting what they don't want because they're thinking about it. But it's all working out. And then you hear them say enough that this is the way it is in the real world, and that you're outside the boundaries of the real world. So now it's not because you are that things turn sour for you. It's that as you give your attention to them, now that vibration is in your vibration, and now your vibration is not in alignment with what life has caused you to become. And this is why the establishment is so slow to change on everything. Do you know what's really at the bottom of this? This is the most important premise for what you're going after with your book and with the questions that you are plying us here with today. Most people offer most of their vibration in response to what they observe. So they observe it as it is. They offer a vibration that matches it. Law of attraction gives them more. They observe it. They offer a vibration about it. Law of attraction matches it. They observe it. And so that's why not very much changes for very many. But it is absolutely possible to step out of that observation, observe it till it causes you to want something different, then turn your undivided attention to what you want, and law of attraction will take you there. You see?
Lovely. Lovely.
Approach this from the standpoint that everyone is source energy in a physical body. So everyone is so much more than they know. Give us again the premise of your book, the very first thing you said to us about how people are looking.
Yeah, I write about media and the fact that media change our sense of self, and that I call it the eunice of you. In other words, the eunice of you is really in your hands, but we think it sort of isn't. We think that we look like someone, so we change our face, we change our body, we change our hair, we change our lives, we change our very much of what we do and the way we behave. And so I talk about this as actually trying to live another life.
Go to the part about the media's influence on reality.
Well, the media's influence on reality, I would say, that I work on is that it changes our sense of identity, and that what, in fact, I think the good news here is that our sense of identity is expanding, and that we're not just the one-dimensional being or creature that we've described ourselves as for so long.
All right, so now let's talk about this, because let's say you are living in a village and you don't have access to newspapers or televisions. You're living in a village, and 99% of what's being offered from you vibrationally is coming in response to what you're observing. So you're observing your village. And in this village, even though there may be things not going well over there, no matter what village it is, in this village, there is much more well-being than not. So if you are an observer, then you are predominantly observing well-being, which means you are chronically offering well-being, which means you are mostly thriving. But in such a village, with the contrast being less, you are not launching as many rockets of desire. So your motion forward as a species or as a person or as a culture would be slower in that village, because there's so much more well-being surrounding you than not well-being. And since you are observing mostly well-being, then well-being continues to be your experience, but not so much is changing. Now let's fast forward all the way to an environment where you live in your village still, but you have access to what's going on in all of the villages on the planet, or nearly so. And not only that, this information is being given to you not in a fair, balanced way of what's really going on, but it is being sought to get your attention. And so they're scouring the world for things that have gone wrong, and they are bringing them in concentrated form and dramatizing them with graphics and music and funneling them incessantly into what you are reading and watching. And in all of that, what's happening is now you have a distorted view of life, which is dampening your ability to relax and experience your well-being. But the positive effect of that is, in this contrast, you are launching rockets of desire at unprecedented rates. So future experiences are benefiting dramatically by the contrast that you are living. And when you croak, you close that gap. And when you are born again, you come from that new vibrational stance. And so the well-being of your planet and the well-being of the people on your planet is always assured. But things are moving faster and faster and faster and faster. So what that means is, life while you are in your body and while you're on your planet has the potential of being more wonderful than ever lived by anyone before, or more awful than ever lived by anyone before, depending upon whether you're going with this faster moving flow or whether you're pulling against it, you see. And you're right, a lot of times someone will get an idea and they will create it and they will put it in a movie, and millions of people will watch the movie, and it does have effect on the way people project thoughts. It does affect the environment. But the thing that we really want you to get, whether you're able to help anyone else understand it through what you write or not, is that in all of that, whether the contrast is great or whether it's small, well-being comes out of that, because desire is born out of it. And the more desire that is being born, the greater risk you run of moving against it, but the greater thrill you experience by moving with it, you see. And so if we were standing in your physical shoes, the point that we would want to make is that the media as it is neither good or bad. It's just what it is. Your response to it is what makes the difference. And in a world where most people are observing sloppily and lazily, that's why so many people feel so much loss of control of their own experiences. It is more important today than it ever has been before that you get over the thought that you can control your world through action. You cannot. This is why it is the time of awakening. In other words, it's sort of like the person who has an illness and they've been to every doctor, they've had every surgery, they've taken every drug, and finally they've been told, we can't do anything else for you. And we just love visiting with someone like that, because they are more likely to do the only thing that really ever worked anyway, which is align their thought. And it's only when you regain your own conscious, deliberate awareness of the control of your experience, which will only ever come through the controlling of your own thought, that you will ever be the autonomous and therefore joyful being that you were born to be. Nobody has the power to hold you as their only object of attention and stay true to what would be best for you. Everybody's staying true to what they think is best for them, you see. It's the way everyone is born to be. We only have the perspective of self. We just want you to know that there's the self in your body and there's the self that is source. And when you line up with who you really are, you find the clarity and the cleverness and the understanding and most of all the joy that eternal beingness is about.
Thank you so much.
Yes, indeed.